Jesus called his 12 disciples to him and gave them authority to drive out evil spirits and to heal every disease and sickness.
The Bible contains remarkable stories of miracles and divine interventions. Moses parted the sea. Peter healed a man lame from his mother's womb. Jesus drove demons out of people and raised others from the dead. But are these types of events still happening today?
We too have a beam of divine light and guidance that God has put within the heart of every man. And it's one of the greatest proofs that there is a God.
More amazing supernatural things are happening than we realize.
This is Divine Intervention, the interview show that features intriguing people who've experienced the hand of God in amazing ways. Divine Intervention was created and produced with the purpose of encouraging believers, spiritual seekers, and skeptics alike that Jesus is alive and is still performing miracles and working in the world today.
I believe in miracles.
Here's your host, Daniel Fazina.
Hello, friend, and welcome to another exciting episode of Divine Intervention Radio. Yes, that's right. I am your host, Daniel Fazina. So excited to be with you today. So privileged, so honored that you would take the time to spend with me. I really do appreciate your tuning in. I love being able to connect with you and to be able to share some awesome testimonies of what the Lord is doing in people's lives. And we have another wonderful guest in store for you today. But before we get to our guest, I'd like to remind you that you can connect with me on divineinterventionradio.com. You can go to the website there, and you can listen to all the archives of Divine Intervention Radio. So if your faith needs a boost, you can go to the archives and check out awesome stories going back several years now. It's hard to believe, but I've been doing this show for over 7 years now, going back to 2007. I just cannot believe it, but it's been an amazing journey, and God has been gracious enough to bring into my life some awesome people who've had some pretty miraculous testimonies. I got to tell you, I've interviewed people who've been healed of incurable diseases. They've had exciting conversion experiences. They've had near-death experiences. I've even interviewed several people who have been raised from the dead. And, Jesus, when he walked the earth, he raised the dead. He healed people. He cast out demons. And he told his disciples that you're going to do the same works I do and even greater works. So it's my privilege to be able to share some of those testimonies with you on Divine Intervention Radio. Again, the website, divineinterventionradio.com. You can also check us out on Facebook. You can like our Facebook page and keep up to date with all the happenings there. Facebook.com/Divine Intervention Radio. And of course, connect with me on Twitter. Twitter.com/Daniel Fazina1 is the handle. Daniel Fazina numeral 1. That's my handle on Twitter.com. So love to connect with you there and get your feedback about what you think about the show. And also, would love to know what you think about my new book, Divine Intervention, 50 True Stories of God's Miracles Today. 50 of the most compelling and awesome stories from people I've interviewed over the years. It's going to really boost your faith if you're a believer in Jesus and the supernatural. And also, if you're a skeptic, it's really going to challenge you. I've got medically documented cases in there of divine healing, people being delivered from alcoholism, drug addiction, demon possession, people being raised from the dead, all that stuff contained right there in Divine Intervention, 50 True Stories of God's Miracles Today. They make great gifts, too. With the holidays coming up, you may want to pick up a couple of copies and give them away to your friends and family. You can find the book on Amazon, or you can go to divineinterventionradio.com and click on the shop button, and there you can see the links for the books. So thanks again for tuning in, and let's get to today's guest. Today's story is one that's kind of tragic, but also has a lot of happiness interspersed within it. And I want to ask you, when you pray for someone or something to happen and it doesn't, how do you deal with that? Do you lose your faith in God? Do you walk away? Or do you trust him and know that he has your best interest at heart, even when he doesn't answer your prayers the way that you think that he should? Today's guest is Prissy Elrod, and she wrote the book Far Outside the Ordinary. It's a memoir of how she went through, a pretty devastating time taking care of her husband who was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer, and, what God did through her life through that, and how it ultimately, even though her husband does pass away from this brain cancer, it ultimately does end with a happy note, and God worked things out. To tell you a little bit about Prissy Elrod is a writer and artist and makes her home in Tallahassee, Florida, where she lives with her husband. She's a member of the Tallahassee Writers Association, has attended numerous writing conferences, and worked with a Pushcart Prize winner on her debut memoir, Far Outside the Ordinary. Her website is PrissyElrod.com, and it's my pleasure to welcome Prissy Elrod right now on Divine Intervention Radio. Prissy, thank you so much for joining us on Divine Intervention Radio. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored.
Oh, no problem. So I have your wonderful book here, Far Outside the Ordinary, a memoir, a very interesting journey you've gone through, both a lot of serious things that are in there, but also you've written it with quite a bit of humor. You had a lot of interesting things going on, and we're definitely going to get to that. But why don't you take us to the beginning a little bit and tell us about your background. Who is Prissy Elrod?
Well, Prissy Elrod really is just an ordinary girl. But as an ordinary girl, I had an ordinary life, and just everything was going wonderful. And then all of a sudden, the earth shifted, and on a routine day, my husband was having his annual physical, and not expecting anything, they come in and say, "You have a brain tumor." And after a few more checkups, they pretty much said he could try surgery, but that it was a one of the worst kind, and it usually strikes men ages 50 to 64. He was 50. So the short of it is, they said, you have a year to live.
Wow.
And it was absolutely the most shocking news. You go over for an executive physical expecting everything to be like it always is. He was a runner. He never smoked. He never drank. And you get this. And so the whole story begins really on that day.
Right.
And what I did and how it's a memoir, so it's told in the first person, but it's what happens when someone gets that news and how you digest it and what you do with it.
Okay. Well, we definitely want to get to your memoir, Far Outside the Ordinary. But can you tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, and maybe tell us about your faith journey and your faith background as well?
Well, I grew up in a little town in Florida called Lake City, Florida.
Okay.
And it's interesting, my parents married. She was Catholic and he was Baptist. So as a child, because in the Catholic faith, you always, when you marry someone who's Catholic and you're outside the faith, you usually sign a little note that says you will raise your children Catholic. And so interestingly enough, my father would go to the Baptist church and we would go to the Catholic church, because at that point he was very much a Baptist, and my mother's side of the family was very Catholic. So I grew up with the Catholic faith, going to parochial schools, and when I was about in middle school, my father switched, and he came over, and he became a Catholic, and a very devout Catholic. So I had a little bit of, the Baptist upbringing with Catholic and the nuns, and so I became very spiritual very early. So much so I remember as a child, when everyone was getting their Halloween costumes ready, I had Sister Conception make me, I wanted a full-blown habit. I said if she would make me a habit exactly like what she was wearing, I would go around and collect money for the church. And I did. I wanted to be able to flip that cardboard that she had at the top of her head, and she would have those glasses on, and she'd flip it back, and I just wanted to be able to have that on my head and flip it back. I know that sounds crazy, but I had a full habit with the rosaries hanging down, and my parents thought, okay, well, maybe she's going to be a nun. But
alas, that was not to be, right?
No. So then, when I married my husband, he was an Episcopalian, and I was, of course, Catholic. So he had a very strong Episcopalian faith in Tallahassee, Florida, and I was coming from Lake City. So he had to sign the dotted line that said he would raise our children Catholic. But I saw such similarity between the Catholics and the Episcopals that I really felt like I was sort of traveling between the two churches. They had the same music and everything. So I sort of did both. I did the Episcopal, and I'm a pleaser. I wanted everybody happy. I wanted my father happy. I wanted my husband happy, and I was happy. I didn't care what church I was in as long as I was, in God's house.
Right.
So we did, we did the Episcopal. So I've had a little bit of all of it, and very strong faith. I think the nuns ingrained in me. I would never go to sleep at night. I don't care how tired I was if I didn't say the act of contrition. I was sure I wouldn't wake up, so I'm a strong prayer.
No, that's great, and I noticed that in reading your book that you had prayed many times and gone to healing services and things like that for your husband. But what does it mean to you to be a follower of Jesus? I mean, who is he to you, and what does he mean to you?
What he means is everything. He is present in every waking moment of my life. I believe that sometimes you don't understand why bad things happen to good people, but we're all his children, so, everything can't always be happening that's wonderful. I understood that young. Anyway, I just always pray, even when things are bad. I feel like it's still not as bad as others may have it. I can't really explain that, but I just feel like he's always watching out for me, but it's not always going to be the answered prayers I think they should be.
Right. No, I understand that. Having gone through cancer myself, and similar to your husband, Boone, who had brain cancer, I had cancer and was told, I could be dead within a few months to even weeks, and I had never smoked or drank or anything like that as well, so it kind of came out of nowhere. And one of the scriptures that I really held on to when I was going through this was Romans 8:28. It says that all things work together for the good of those who love the Lord and those who are the called according to his purpose. Let's face it, we live in a broken, cursed world, that's full of sin and brokenness, and that verse doesn't say that everything that happens will be good, but if we trust in the Lord and we love him, we know that it'll work out for our benefit and for our good. And, like you just mentioned, the prayers sometimes aren't answered in the way we think, or maybe God says yes, maybe he says no, maybe he says not now. Mm-hmm. But I do believe he does listen to us. So, when you went in for this routine checkup with your husband and you got this diagnosis, what went through your mind at that point?
Well, you go through those stages, as you know, because you had the same thing happen to you. Disbelief is first, and they're wrong. You just can't believe as you're looking at this healthy person that what they're saying is true. So I didn't believe them, honestly. I thought they had the wrong file. Perhaps they'd mixed it up, and the one who really had the brain tumor was in the next room, and they had somehow gotten our charts mixed up. But once the reality started setting in, and it took a long time, let me just say, before it set into my brain.
When you say long time, are you talking days, weeks, months?
I'm talking months.
Yeah.
I'm talking probably up until he was almost catatonic before I really accepted that. I knew it was true, you know what I'm saying, but you just still can't quite believe it.
Yeah, it's a very surreal feeling.
Yeah, it really is, because when you go from just everything being wonderful, life isn't wonderful, but we were very fortunate and blessed, and, I just couldn't believe it happened. It usually happens to other people, and everyone always says that, but when it moves into your own house, you're like, you see the world so differently. Everything changes in the way you look at the world when you've had a tragedy hit you. Little things are truly minuscule, and I now run into people who are just moaning and whining about such little things, and I want to say, stop it, really.
Yeah, it really helps you put things in perspective.
It does. Sadly, it's true, and you hate to go through that, but it does make you if I can say it made me a better person, maybe that was God's will. I'm a different person.
Yeah, I know. I have an interesting story about that. I remember one time being at the post office during my lunch break on Long Island, and there was a really long line of people, and I got up to the counter, and all of a sudden I was buying a money order, and the money order machine went down. Like their whole network went down. So there's probably 15 people online behind me, and the clerks are scrambling, and they're running back and forth, and they're trying to get the thing up, and the computers just aren't working, and it's got to be like 10, 15 minutes goes by. And they're so apologetic, and I'm just standing there, and they're like, wow, you don't even seem to be in a hurry. I want to thank you so much for being patient, and, and people behind me were making comments and stuff like that. And I'm like, look, I've been through cancer. I've been told that I could be dead within weeks. This is nothing to me. And they were just so blown away by that and so shocked that I wasn't being rude or nasty. And,
Exactly.
And yeah, it's all small stuff. You got to not sweat the small stuff.
And I think maybe that's part of your lessons you learn through God, how you help other people.
Yes.
So many people have it. I did this benefit last night to help raise money for a young widows group, Fresh New Start, and it out at this farm, and we were giving this money we raised to help this young widow. She's 32 years old, and her husband had died while she was, I think she delivered her baby 3 or 4 months before he died.
Oh, wow.
And so we were trying to gather up money to take care of her child and send her on a little getaway with 3 girlfriends to get a fresh new start, is what it's called.
Oh, that's beautiful.
But also, as this is happening, her father is dying of ALS.
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, here's a girl, 33. Her husband died 6 months ago. Her father's dying of ALS. She's just... And I'm thinking, people just don't realize what other people are going through, and they are so ensconced in their own little worries about, I don't know. It's hard not to just want to go up and say, listen to me, and be sort of a preacher. And you don't want to be that, because nobody will want to go to lunch with you anymore. If you say, stop whining, don't whine to me.
I know. This is middle-class white girl drama. Get over it,
Yeah, exactly. My poor daughters, if they ever call with anything, it's like, you realize you're talking to me now. It's not going to work.
That's funny. Friend, you're listening to Divine Intervention Radio. I'm your host, Daniel Fazina, and we are visiting with our special guest, Prissy Elrod. She is the author of Far Outside the Ordinary, a memoir in which she details her kind of tragic battle with brain cancer, where her husband was going through that, and the kind of the funny antics that go along with it. And this is ultimately a very happy ending to the story, because it's really cool how it ends. And I'm not going to spoil it for you, but we'll talk about that. But Prissy, what I really admire about you is that all throughout the memoir, I see you trying to take care of your husband, and you're not giving up hope, and you have what you describe as a stubborn belief in miracles. And can you talk about that, that aspect of your personality and your faith?
Well, I'm a Pollyanna. I guess that sums me up in one word.
Okay.
I just always believe that if you think positive thoughts, you don't always have positive things happen, but it's good karma. So I'm a positive thinking person. I wake up happy. I go to bed happy. I don't know. I'm grateful that I have that. But one thing that gave me this belief in miracles was following my daughter home from college.
That's right.
On a road.
You actually witnessed a miracle. I'm glad you brought that up.
I did.
Tell us about that.
I'm one of those mothers. I'm very protective of my children, and so I was the only mother who went up to, I live in Florida, and my daughter was at the University of Alabama, and I thought, I just don't want her coming home on that road. It's going to be late. So my sister and I drove up to Alabama so that I could follow her home in her Jeep. I mean, I know that sounds crazy unless there's another mother like me listening right now, but
there probably
I wanted to be sure. It's a 2-lane road, it's kind of desolate and everything, and she was going to be coming home with all of her dorm emptied up. So my sister and I went up to help her empty her dorm and follow her home. And as I was following her home, she's in front of me, I watched her car run off the road. She tried to overcompensate and get back on, and it began to flip.
Oh, my gosh.
It flipped in the air in front of me as we're going 55 miles an hour twice. It did 2 somersaults, and then it landed across the road upside down. It was the most I didn't even think of it being my daughter or that what was happening. It goes through your brain, that car is flipping. And then my sister screaming, my daughter's name's Garrett. That's Garrett.
Oh, my gosh.
So as I'm going 55, I'm trying to get out of my seatbelt and get out of the car as my car is racing down the road, and my sister screaming, "Stop your car!" I was crazy. So as I
wait, you were trying to leave? You were trying to jump out of the car while it's still moving?
While it's still moving.
Oh, my
I was
gosh.
just reacting to my daughter.
Of course, wow.
And so we got my car pulled over, and I jumped out and ran. And it's a strange thing when cars are upside down. The wheels were spinning, but I was crawling around, and I couldn't even find where the driver's side was. And the top was crushed in, and I was screaming and crying and praying and screaming to God, "Oh my God!" It was a scene that I still relive, and I could hear her voice saying, "Mommy." So I found the driver's window, crashed in, and I crawled through, and she was dangling from the top of the ceiling of her seatbelt, and I unlatched it and pulled her out into my arms. Well, here's the miracle. The car was completely totaled, smashed in completely. I heard the sirens and the people coming. She didn't have a scratch on her. Nothing.
Wow.
Not a bruise, any blood, nothing. And when the people got there, the sheriff, the ambulance, the fire trucks, the Jaws of Life, they all said, "Where's the victim?" who was in my arms, and they couldn't believe it. So someone went and interviewed this man. There was an old house. That's all that was around in this whole arena was this little house, and they had seen a man sitting on the front porch. He was a black man, and they said, "Well, let me go see if he can tell us what happened," because I didn't know. And the sheriff came back and said, "Yeah, well, I interviewed that guy. He must be drinking moonshine, because he said he saw that black car coming down the road, and he saw an angel's wing hanging out the passenger side." They were all laughing, talking about he must have been in moonshine. But I knew at that point there was an angel in her front seat, and there's no way she should have lived. They were all saying it's just impossible. So at that point, I really believed in miracles. Okay, so it was soon after that her father was diagnosed with his brain tumor, a few months later.
Wow.
So that's why I believed when they said he can't survive and there's no way, it's fatal, and I didn't believe it because I'd seen something that was so miraculous. They couldn't tell me with all their degrees that he couldn't survive. I didn't believe them. So
wow, that's awesome. I love that. And to have a third-party observer actually see an angel's wing while the car is flipping.
You and I know he saw it. Skeptics can say what they want, but...
Sure, and obviously, the car is totaled, demolished on its roof, flipping 2 times at 55 miles an hour. Now, did you actually bring your daughter to the hospital to get checked out?
No, I was the one they put in the ambulance when it came, because by then reality set in, and I'm like, oh my gosh, so they had me in there with checking my blood pressure, but literally 3 hours after impact, she's in our car with her little luggage, and the car is left totaled on the side of the road, and we come back to Tallahassee. It still remains a mystery how a car that is crushed, the metal it's just hardly recognizable, and you pull someone out who doesn't have a scratch.
Wow, praise God.
Even the airbag didn't deploy. It's weird.
Amazing. I love it. Friend, you're listening to Divine Intervention Radio, and we're visiting with our special guest, Prissy Elrod. She is the author of Far Outside the Ordinary, memoir, and I'm your host, Daniel Fazina. Prissy, we're going to take a short break here, but we're going to come back, and after the break, I want to hear more about, what happened with your husband, Boone, and then, the turn of events that took place, and how ultimately you did have a happy ending to your memoir, Far Outside the Ordinary. Once again, this is Daniel Fazina. You're listening to Divine Intervention Radio, and we will be right back with more of Prissy Elrod after the break. Stay with us.
You're listening to Divine Intervention with Daniel Fazina, and we'll return in just a moment.
I believe in miracles.
Hey, this is Daniel Fazina of Divine Intervention Radio. The Bible contains some incredible stories of miracles and divine interventions. Jesus calmed a raging storm, healed paralytics, and even raised the dead. But are these types of events still happening today? The answer to this question, as you will see from reading my book, Divine Intervention, 50 True Stories of God's Miracles Today, is an emphatic yes. Contained within the book is a collection of amazing true stories that attest to this fact. You will read the astonishing first-hand accounts of people who have been healed of paralysis, terminal cancer, and tumors through prayer. You will see the love of God powerfully transform the life of an Islamic terrorist. You will witness the liberation of the demon-possessed, the resurrection of the dead, and much more. Prepare to be awed and inspired as you experience divine intervention. More information about Divine Intervention, 50 True Stories of God's Miracles Today can be found at www.divineinterventionradio.com or by calling 800-247-4784. That's 1-800-247-4784. Times are tough, not getting easier, but there's an opportunity that could make a significant change in your financial situation. People are paying too much for home utilities, and everybody has them. Help friends and family save money and get paid for it. No obligation. You don't even have to talk to anyone unless you want to. Just listen to a 3-minute recorded message. Call now, 203-717-3124. 203-717-3124. Listen, decide, and you could be on your way to a better tomorrow. 203-717-3124. Divine Intervention welcomes the support of Latirzo Associates, Certified Public Accountants. Latirzo Associates, Certified Public Accountants is a family-owned and operated Christian business serving their clients with quality accounting services for over 40 years, offering full-service accounting for any type of business, large or small, in any state of the union. Latirzo Associates, Certified Public Accountants, 12 Oak Street, number 5, West Hampton Beach, New York, 11978. Phone 631-288-3334. That's 631-288-3334.
Divine Intervention is supported by Grease Car Vegetable Fuel Systems. Grease Car Vegetable Fuel Systems is the leading manufacturer of vegetable oil conversion kits for diesel vehicles. With Grease Car kits, your diesel vehicle can run on waste vegetable oil, saving money while recycling and helping to preserve the environment. Kits are available for diesel-powered cars, light-duty and heavy-duty trucks. More information can be found on the web at www.greasecar.com or by calling 413-534-0013.
Hey folks, this is W, aka John Morgan, and you're listening to Divine Intervention Radio with Daniel Fazina.
Welcome back to Divine Intervention Radio. I'm your host, Daniel Fazina. If you're just joining us, we are visiting with Prissy Elrod. She is an author, and her book is called Far Outside the Ordinary, a memoir. And it's kind of about her story of having her husband being diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. Prissy, welcome back.
Thank you.
No problem. So before the break, we talked about your, shall we say, stubborn belief in miracles, and that you actually witnessed a miracle when your daughter's car flipped going at 55 miles per hour, and someone saw an angel's wing hanging out the side of the passenger's window, and she was actually pulled from the wreckage by yourself without any harm to her. I mean, no scratches, nothing, which is really amazing. And let's talk about how, you brought that faith with you going forward in caring for your husband, Boone, who is diagnosed with brain cancer, and also how God brought a very interesting cast of characters into your life and into your home to help take care of him. Tell us about that.
Well, with my stubbornness, I think you worded that perfectly. I believe in miracles.
Well, I do too, so we're in good company here.
Oh, good. Well, after I did the traditional, all the traditional routes, the brain surgery, the radiation, and they said, that's it. He has, 3 months at most, maybe 9 months to live. I did the alternative route. Everything you can think of, from Chinese foot soaks to FDA-indicted physicians I saw profiled on Dateline who had the miracle cure. We traveled to Texas for that. Even an Indian reservation where they did, special healing. I just absolutely knew I would find the cure for this man, and I should say he was very quiet through it all. I dragged him across the country, and I stayed awake nights. Looking back, you kind of second guess whether you should have just sat back and enjoyed the moment and enjoyed the present. But you fight with everything you have because you have a very young man who's being stolen.
Right.
So when all else failed, and I realized, okay, God has His plan, and Prissy, you need to just listen. I brought him home, and I decided, well, if I couldn't choose to have him live, I would certainly choose how I would let him die.
Okay.
And it would be in my own home, not in a hospital. So, of course, as he got worse, he was a large man, 6'1", and, muscular. I had 2 daughters and myself, and we got to where when he got bad, we couldn't help him, couldn't lift him. So I had a recommendation of a wonderful man who had actually taken care of the governor of Florida years earlier through his end stages of life. And so his daughter said, the governor's daughter said, you should try this man. His name is Cornelius Duhart. He can help you. He comes in and helps with the terminally ill. So I met with him, and he came in, and I call him the angel of death. He moved into our home, my daughters, myself, and my husband, and he became our savior. And he had such a positive glow. I mean, he understood dying. He helped us through this transition. I can't explain this man except I love him like I've never loved anybody. He's just this special person, still in our life to this day. And he helped my daughters. He would talk to them at night and say, this is what's going on. And so, but he worked during the day. He was kind of the night guy. He would come so I could finally sleep. And so I would take care of my husband during the day, and he would leave. And as things got worse, I cried and said, you can't go to your other job. You've got to stay here and help me. So he said, well, I'll pull in my sister. She'll do the day work, and then I'll be here at night. You'll never be alone. So his sister moved in, and that's when the story becomes laughter through tears.
Yes.
So hilarious that that people on Amazon are writing all these things. I even have a movie writer now writing the movie script for this because you can't make it up.
It was. I got to tell you, folks, it was quite hilarious.
It's almost like upstairs, downstairs, but it was front room, back room.
Oh yeah,
American version of that,
When you read this book, Far Outside the Ordinary, you'll see what we're talking about here. There was a lot of love and a lot of caring going on, and really, godsend stuff. But there was also a lot of antics going on in the background too. And I'll let you elaborate on that. But it was quite funny.
Oh yeah, it's just. Every day I was taking care of somebody. Nobody was really taking care of me. I was taking care of my caregivers and their lives of chaos, and plus I was taking care of my 2 daughters and my husband. So it's hilarious the way it works, and so you're not reading a book about despair and sadness. I couldn't write that. Nobody wants to read that, so I had to write the truth, which is the craziness that happened. I kept a journal every day because I was thinking, okay, this isn't really happening. I need to write this down because it can't be real. So I'd write it down, and then I'd write what happened the next day, and I would think each day can't get crazier.
So give us an example of the craziness so people can get a taste of it.
Well, one of them was, the one lady that helped me was, she had a common-law husband, and she had gotten arrested for pulling a knife on him because he was coming after her, and I find out I didn't even know, even though she had been helping me for 10 years, she had a common-law husband. But the reason she was using a knife on him is because her gun had been stolen that night by her son's girlfriend, and she was robbing McDonald's and putting the people in the freezer. I mean, truly, I couldn't make stuff up that happened. So I was calling my friend who was a sheriff to see if I could get this kid out of jail because I needed his mother to be helping me. And, I mean, it was just, honestly, Daniel, it was crazy.
So in the midst of
I don't want to give away the real twist in the story.
No, it's
mother and sister, because that is just the shocker of everything.
Yeah, and there's a lot of funny and crazy antics that go on in the midst of this beautiful
of my loving story. Them. Let me just say,
oh, yeah.
Loved them. I didn't really care what they did. They are wonderful, wonderful, wonderful people. And actually, before I wrote this book, the story had gotten all over town, and I put this in my prologue. It had traveled as far as Hollywood, and some writer from Hollywood came years ago and wanted to buy this whole story. He said, "This is just not. We can't even make this up in Hollywood." And and I said, I wouldn't sell it to him because I was afraid they would exploit these wonderful people and make it their own story. And I knew that if this was ever going to be told, I would be the one to tell it, because I would tell it with love,
right,
and humor.
And that definitely comes through in your memoir. And by the way, the memoir is called Far Outside the Ordinary, and you're listening to Divine Intervention Radio, and we are sitting here with the author, Miss Prissy Elrod from Tallahassee, Florida. So, Prissy, tell us, bring us forward in this, because, you're going through caring for your husband. He has brain cancer, and you believe in miracles. You're praying, and you're trying all these different things, but ultimately you realize that nothing is working. What did that do to your faith in the Lord and your trust in His sovereignty, let's say?
It's interesting. I never wavered. I still felt like He was with me the whole time.
Okay.
Now, one of my daughters, and I raised them, with God. We were never missed church. One of my daughters became even stronger in her faith, but one of my daughters, that was it for her. She lost faith completely.
Wow. It's amazing how a situation like this can have that effect on you. I mean, some people can be drawn to God, closer to God, and others can be just totally
pulled away completely.
Pushed away. Yeah, it always amazes me how different people react to these type of situations.
Well, and it's hard to help someone, to have the answers for her.
Right.
He would say to me, "There is no God because He wouldn't have done this," and she was the baby. She was younger. She was 17, so that's a hard age. And she was very, very close to her father. They did horseback riding trips and all this stuff. And I kept saying, honey, you just have to have faith. You have to understand there's a reason. They needed him in heaven. He had a calling to go up. You just don't know what to say. I would love to be able to tell your listeners, say this, say this, say this, but who knows?
Right. Yeah, you can't know. And, this is something I struggled with, too, after coming through cancer. I struggled with survivor's guilt. Why was I healed? And maybe someone who's just as worthy or just as deserving wasn't healed, and they succumbed to their disease. And I've come to realize that I really believe that it has to do with the mission that we've all been given. Some people, what they've been put on earth to do is accomplished, and their time is up, and God calls them home. And for others, He may have more work for them to do. And I really believe that was the case in my own situation. I wasn't healed because I'm better than anybody else or I had more faith. In fact, I really didn't know whether God was going to heal me or not. I didn't have the faith to be healed. It was my friends around me who really prayed for me and really lifted me up, I think, into the presence of Jesus that really helped me to come through it. I was at a point of brokenness saying, you know what, God, your will be done, whether I'm going to die and go to heaven to be with you or whether you're going to keep me around for a little longer. I was at that point of surrender.
Look what you're doing. So he had a plan for you.
He did.
Really?
He did. I really believe I'm doing what I've been called to do.
Yeah,
so, thank you.
I agree with you 100%.
Thank you. And your story, although it was tragic in the fact that your husband Boone did pass away, but he passed away with dignity, at home with you guys. The story does have a happy ending, which is what really drew me to your story. Because normally we have featured on people on this who have amazing miracles, and if they have a disease, they're usually healed. But in this case, tell us what happened with Boone, and then how your life changed after that.
Well, you can do one of two things. You can crawl in your bed, put the covers over you after you lose someone, whether it's divorce, death, whatever, or you can just decide that you're not going to let two people die. I made up my mind when he died. My children had lost their father. They were not going to lose their mother.
Amen.
I had to come to the realization I needed to change the way they saw me. I had been a stay-at-home mom. I'd had a lot of little jobs I did at home, but I wasn't leaving. It was things I did to bring in extra money. But I said, they need to see me outside of this house and in another world. So I went and got a job right after he died, working with in state government office. And so they were able to see me, not think of me sitting home crying while they were trying to go to college and go to high school and stuff.
Right.
So that's the first thing I did, is I said, okay, Prissy, get out there and move forward. And then once I did that, I started feeling like, okay, Prissy, you've never really lived alone. You went from your parents' house and soon got married, and you've never. So it was really different when your children have moved out and you're alone. But I changed. I started becoming independent. I was having to make these decisions by myself finally. And then one day, I after all the sympathy cards had come and gone, and people move on with their life as they should, I go into my mailbox, and it's probably months later, and I open it up, and there is a letter, and it's another sympathy card, and I'm thinking, well, those stopped a long time ago. Who's that from? And I recognized the address, and it was up in Indiana. Well, fast forward, it turned out to be from an old high school, college boyfriend, and he had heard about Boone dying, and he'd sent me this card. It wasn't like a regular sympathy card. He'd typed this message inside. So I wrote him back. I hadn't heard from him in, 30 years, and we started writing a little bit, not letters, just the internet. I remembered him, but we didn't exchange pictures, or we didn't talk on the phone. We just wrote back and forth, sort of like You've Got Mail with Meg Ryan, just back and forth.
And Tom Hanks, yeah.
So, yeah, exactly. So after a few months, he suggested, or I suggested, one of us said, well, we should meet somewhere between where he lived, which was Indianapolis, and where I lived, Tallahassee, and try and pick each other out of a crowd.
Oh, wow.
And see if we recognize each other. And so we did that. And it was the Peabody Hotel in Memphis where the ducks come down the elevator, and it's the most beautiful love story ever. I mean, part 3 is, it's not like a Cinderella story children read, little girls read about the prince coming to rescue. It's a real Cinderella story where he doesn't come in the horse and drive and crawl up the stairs like on Pretty Woman. He takes the Peabody elevator, and it's a very, very happy ending. And he had never married. He still had pictures of me in his wallet.
Wow.
After 30 years.
That is so romantic.
Yeah, he had never gotten over me, and I mean, it's very sweet.
So you met at the Peabody Hotel, and you picked each other out of the crowd, obviously. Mm-hmm. And how did things go from there? I mean, was it like love at Second Sight, or?
Well, it's in the book too. It's I end it right where we meet at the Peabody. But yes, he was the thing about reconnecting with an old boyfriend. It's like I wrote in my book. It's like Post-it notes in your head. You feel young again because you're living that youth through. That's the last. I still thought I was going to see this blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy that I had seen 31 years ago, but instead, he's got the same blue eyes, but he's gray, and it's interesting the way it works. But I still, as he had gray hair and a gray beard, I still was looking at this blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy because that's where my brain was,
Wow.
And he was the same way. I read a book once about, I can't remember who wrote it, but it's called My Boyfriend's Back, and this author had gone and interviewed 1,000 couples who had reconnected with an old boyfriend.
Oh, wow.
Up marrying or some thing, and it was interesting.
That sounds like a very interesting read indeed. So you're actually working on part 2 of your memoir?
I am. I'm working on part 2, and the book's being acquired now by New York Publishing Company, and it's being adapted for a movie. So I wasn't even a writer. God pulled this out of me. I am an artist. I had never aspired to be a writer. It took me 4 years of reading 48 different books on how to craft a story before my story became, my manuscript really was published. And
wow.
I didn't let anyone read any of my manuscript for 2 years, and then I still didn't let family or friends or anybody who knew me read it. I found somebody in the back of Poets and Writers magazine and sent it to this manuscript evaluator and said, "Can you tell me, is this a story that anybody would want to read?" And he called me and he said, yes, I want to work with you. And he ended up, while he was working with me, winning the 2013 Pushcart Prize. So he's a wonderful, his name's Stephen Adams, he's a wonderful writer too.
That is
After
awesome.
he said, "You have a story here, Prissy, you need to get this out to the world. It's inspiring, it will help people." I said, "Really?" I still didn't quite believe him. So
yes,
that's how it happened.
That's awesome. And again, the book is called Far Outside the Ordinary, a memoir. It's by Prissy Elrod, and we're sitting down with her right now. And we're going to put a link to it up on our website, divineinterventionradio.com, so you can check it out there. And of course, if you miss any of the interviews we've done with anybody, you can check out the archives there at divineinterventionradio.com. And Prissy, your website is prissyelrod.com. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, PRISSYELROD.com. You can check out more information there as well. Now, Prissy, you said this God drugged this out of you, basically. But what is your hope when people read your memoir? What do you hope they'll take away from when they do read it?
Well, what I really hope is that they will realize that even if they feel hopeless, there's always hope. There is life after loss, whether it's any kind of loss, from a job to a husband or a wife or a child. I mean, you can move on. And it's not like you're forgetting that person, but God put us all here to live. And if I survive, there's a reason why I had to watch this happen to my husband, and my children had to watch it. I'm now going out and I'm helping young widows who have lost their husband, and I'm trying to raise awareness. I mean, more and more young people even are dying of cancer and other horrific things, and I think you can make a difference in other people's lives and give them hope. And so I really honestly started out writing this for my children so that their father's name would still be out there. They would have something to pass down to their children and their children. But then it grew from my children to my friends, and then my friends to people all over the country are writing me saying, you changed me. I was able to get out of bed. So, I mean, that's not me. That's God coming through me.
That is awesome.
Helping them.
I love
honestly.
it. And if there's someone listening to this interview right now who maybe, they've lost someone, maybe they're struggling with the idea that God, maybe he's not there. Maybe they don't believe in God, or they're just really having a crisis of faith. What would you want to say to those people?
Well, I would want to tell them that they need to just keep praying because He is listening. He'll help you in another way. It might not be what you want or you're asking for, but He has another plan. It's a different way. That's all. It's not exactly. He's smarter, and even though it may not be you're asking for healing or to find a job or for your husband to straighten out or your wife to straighten out. There's something else out there. I just believe it with all my heart and soul that you just have to have faith, and it'll work out. May not work out the way you had it planned to work out, but it doesn't mean it's not a better plan or a different plan.
Yeah, it usually doesn't work out the way we think it will, but God knows what's best for us, and He works it out perfectly.
Absolutely.
Again, our special guest is Prissy Elrod. Check out her book, Far Outside the Ordinary, a memoir. Again, we'll put a link to it up on our website, Divine Intervention Radio, and you can also go to PrissyElrod.com. Prissy, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to share with us your very interesting and inspiring journey, and just keep up the great work you're doing, and keep encouraging people.
Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled, and it was wonderful to talk to you, and I hope I can help others. That makes it all worthwhile.
Amen to that. Thanks again. Friend, that about does it for this episode of Divine Intervention Radio. Again, I'm your host, Daniel Fazina, and I want to thank you so much for tuning in. I hope this episode has encouraged you to know that God is real, and He's still working in people's lives today. God willing, we'll see you again next week for another exciting episode of Divine Intervention. Take care, and God bless.
You've been listening to Divine Intervention with your host, Daniel Fazina. You can email Daniel at divineintervention@mail.com. That's divineintervention@mail.com. All programs of Divine Intervention are available online at divineinterventionradio.com. That's divineinterventionradio.com. Join us next time here on Divine Intervention.
I believe in miracles.
Hey, this is Daniel Fazina of Divine Intervention Radio. The Bible contains some incredible stories of miracles and divine interventions. Jesus calmed a raging storm, healed paralytics, and even raised the dead. But are these types of events still happening today? The answer to this question, as you will see from reading my book, Divine Intervention, 50 True Stories of God's Miracles Today, is an emphatic yes. Contained within the book is a collection of amazing true stories that attest to this fact. You will read the astonishing first-hand accounts of people who have been healed of paralysis, terminal cancer, and tumors through prayer. You will see the love of God powerfully transform the life of an Islamic terrorist. You will witness the liberation of the demon-possessed, the resurrection of the dead, and much more. Prepare to be awed and inspired as you experience divine intervention. More information about Divine Intervention, 50 True Stories of God's Miracles Today can be found at www.divineinterventionradio.com or by calling 800-247-4784. That's 1-800-247-4784. Times are tough, not getting easier, but there's an opportunity that could make a significant change in your financial situation. People are paying too much for home utilities, and everybody has them. Help friends and family save money and get paid for it. No obligation. You don't even have to talk to anyone unless you want to. Just listen to a 3-minute recorded message. Call now, 203-717-3124. 203-717-3124. Listen, decide, and you could be on your way to a better tomorrow. 203-717-3124. Divine Intervention welcomes the support of Latirzo Associates, Certified Public Accountants. Latirzo Associates, Certified Public Accountants is a family-owned and operated Christian business serving their clients with quality accounting services for over 40 years, offering full-service accounting for any type of business, large or small, in any state of the union. Latirzo Associates, Certified Public Accountants, 12 Oak Street, No. 5, West Hampton Beach, New York, 11978. Phone 631-288-3334. That's 631-288-3334. First Steps to Success with ABC's secret millionaire, Danny Johnson, gives you the tools to remap your internal beliefs about yourself, about your money, and about others. You'll learn a simple but powerful system to create success in any environment, as well as business building, leadership, sales, and marketing skills to create the lifestyle most only dream about. First Steps to Success with Danny Johnson. More information can be found at DannyJohnson.com or phone 866-760-8255.